Coming up next on HBC TV 25, Spirit of the Heartland with Joyce Woodworth. Brought to you by Winona Health, a friend for life. And by Merchants National Bank, with real local ties.
Winona Health, your community healthcare provider. Taking care of your family. Our highly trained professionals offer exceptional healthcare services close to home.
We're going to take some pictures of your knee today.
From diagnostic services to inpatient and outpatient hospital care.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brokemmer. What are we going
to senior housing and home care. Winona Health, a friend for life.
What is banking all about? It's about him, her, them. It's about managing today's challenges and planning for tomorrow's opportunities. It's having someone there when you need them, a trusted resource, a partner, a bank that knows you, not as a number or an account, but as a friend. Far from ordinary, right at home. That's Merchants Bank.
Hi, I'm Joyce Woodworth. Welcome to the Spirit of the Heartland. The Mississippi River flows right past Winona. In fact, it's the reason Winona stands where it does. It floats commercial barges and pleasure crafts from St. Paul all the way down to New Orleans. And like the highways that take our automobiles from place to place, it has to be taken care of and maintained to make sure the boats reach their destination. Who and what takes care of the river for us? Today we're going to find out the answer to that question at the Corps of Engineers establishment in Fountain City, Wisconsin, as we hear stories of the William A. Thompson Dredge, which has been cleaning out the Mississippi River for us since 1937. The Dredge Thompson casts a very impressive image as it floats down the Mississippi River. Here we see the dredge in its full regalia, propelling all its necessary equipment on compact barges underneath the interstate bridge in Winona, Minnesota. It's heading downriver to one of its last dredging jobs before it is to be decommissioned. Soon we will be able to tour the Dredge Thompson when it is pulled out of the water and placed next to the Marine Art Museum on the riverbanks in Winona. But until then, the heart and soul of the dredge lies within the Corps of Engineers on the Upper Mississippi, which has its home service base at the north end of Fountain City, Wisconsin. It is here where I met with two of the engineers in September of 2006 to find out why the Dredge Thompson and now its replacement, the Dredge Getz, are so important to the navigation of the river. I'm presently now sitting at the U.S. Corps of Engineers service base here in Fountain City with Dan Krumholtz, who is one of the engineers here for the Dredge Thompson and for the Corps of Engineers. Hi, Dan. Welcome to the Spirit of Heartland.
Thanks, Joyce. Nice to be here.
Now, Dan, let's start talking about the U.S. Corps of Engineers first off, because I'm not really sure exactly what they do. I know they're a part of the Army. Tell me a little bit about it.
Okay, well, the Corps of Engineers is a very old agency. It goes back, has roots back to the Revolutionary War. And today we're a water resources planner and developer for the government. We come under the Department of the Army, but we're primarily made up of civilian employees. We have about 30,000 employees nationwide or worldwide, because we have presence overseas too. And we're divided up into 30-plus districts in the continental United States, but we also have districts in Iraq right now.
So basically, it sounds like you are the engineers for the Army.
Yeah, that's correct. Our top management is made up of Army personnel, and there's a civil work side to the Corps of Engineers, and then there's also a military side to the Corps, too.
Okay. And you mentioned you were in Iraq, and what are you doing over in Iraq now?
In Iraq, we're helping out with rebuilding the country, the infrastructure that was damaged, reestablishing electricity, buildings, school buildings, and whatever needs to be reconstructed. Now, on the Mississippi River, we are responsible for maintaining the upper Mississippi River, which goes to Minneapolis, Minnesota, down to Cairo, Illinois. There's 6 districts on the Mississippi River.
Okay.
And the St. Paul district is the uppermost district, and that goes from the head of navigation in Minneapolis down to northeast Iowa, Guttenberg, Iowa. And then our Rock Island district, our sister district, picks up from there, and they have about 300 miles of the next stretch of the Mississippi.
Tell me about the history of the navigation of the river.
Well, it goes back a long ways. We were first authorized to make improvements back in the 1800s by removing snags and other obstructions. In the 1880s, a 4.5-foot channel was authorized, and we did that by constructing wing dams to constrict the flows. The wing dams were constructed by using rock and willow brush mats cut from the islands, and they were woven together to a mat, and then they were sunk with rock that was quarried from the bluffs adjacent to the river. After the 4.5-foot channel, it was realized that they needed a deeper channel, so in 1920s, a 6-foot channel was authorized. And it was realized by 1930 that was still inadequate, so the 9-foot channel project was authorized. And that was to be accomplished through a series of locks and dams and supplemented by dredging. In our district, we have 13 locks and dams that were built in the 1930s, and at the time it was recognized that dredging would have to supplement the locks. So 2 large dredges were authorized for the upper Mississippi River. One was the Dredge Thompson, and the other was the Dredge Rock Island. The Thompson later replaced the Dredge Rock Island in the late 1950s, so the Rock Island was decommissioned, and the Thompson took over the entire workload. So
let's talk about who the Thompson is named after. Who was William A. Thompson?
Well, William Thompson was an early engineer. He was an area engineer back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. He was responsible for accomplishing many of those improvements, overseeing the wing dam construction and the early establishment of navigation on the Mississippi River. So he was very instrumental in that, and appropriately the first major dredge was named after him.
Talk about the Dredge Thompson. I know it pulls the sand out of the water, and at one point it used to just throw it where it may, and now I understand that there's more environmental issues involved. Let's talk about that. Where does the sand go to, and describe that for me?
Yeah, you're right. In the early days, we did not have a lot of pipeline and equipment associated with the Thompson, and so the placement was basically within about 1,500 feet of where the dredging occurred. In the 1970s, it was recognized that environmental concerns over the placement of the dredge material were becoming more and more of a factor. Other resource agencies that manage the natural resources on the river became increasingly concerned. We got together with them in the mid-1970s and came up with a plan that identified placement sites for all of our dredging locations. And so today we follow that plan. We have sites that are acceptable to everyone.
What happens to the sand in those sites?
Well, we use it for a lot of things. One of our major objectives is to try and make beneficial use of the material because it's good, clean sand. We're always looking for opportunities to place it where it can be used for productive purposes. So we've used it for road construction, fill for commercial development in industrial sites, airports. It's been stockpiled and used for ice control in the wintertime. It's applied to the roads. However you can use sand, our dredge material has been used for that purpose. We try and take a balanced approach to managing the river and managing commercial navigation. Working with the other agencies, we recognize that there are other values, recreational values, environmental values, and so we try and work together to manage it in the best interest of all.
The Dredge Thompson's job is as diverse as the Thompson itself. In fact, there may never be another dredge like it. Not only is it a boat and a dredge, but it is also a hotel and restaurant for its crew, a power plant, a repair shop, and a construction site all rolled into one. We learn just how unique the Thompson is from another one of the Corps' engineers. I'm now sitting actually on the river with Jim Maybeck, who is the plant engineer for the Corps of Engineers, and we're sitting behind an actual model of the Dredge Thompson.
Yes.
And we're sitting near this darling little dredge right here, the Dubuque. Tell me about this little dredge. Is this a typical type of a dredge for the Corps of Engineers?
The Corps of Engineers has several different types of dredges. The St. Paul District has only what are called hydraulic cutterhead dredges, and this is a classic hydraulic cutterhead dredge behind us. It's a 12-inch dredge, which means that the suction pipe is 12 inches in diameter. It is like a giant vacuum cleaner in that it draws in a slurry of water and sand through the front of the dredge. It pressurizes it, and it sends it several thousand feet to a destination somewhere ashore.
Now, when would you use this in replacement of a large dredge like the Thompson?
We use this in areas where the job is small and the mobilization costs to get a larger dredge in would be high, or where we physically cannot get the large dredge in, such as if we have width restrictions or we have height restrictions under bridges.
Now, Jim, describe the large dredge, the Thompson, which isn't here today, but we'll be taking a look at it. And here's a darling little model of it. Describe it to me from this model, if you could, please.
All right. First, I'd like to point out that this dredge is unique in that it has not only the dredging functions which we see in the front of the dredge and in the back of the dredge, but it also has what are called quarters, which are a space for the men to live on the dredge, and it has propulsion. The objective of the dredge is to first agitate the river bottom, and that's done with the cutter head that's depicted by this cutter here. When the sand and water has been agitated and a slurry created, you have a pump immediately inside the forward bulkhead of your dredge that creates a suction on what's called the suction line, which runs up on this device here called the ladder. So we have water and sand running up the suction pipe into a pump that is right behind this bulkhead. The centrifugal pump is driven by a 2,000 horsepower diesel engine, and it turns that sand and slurry into a pressurized slurry that is pumped throughout the length of the hull out to a discharge pipe back here. And that pipe then is connected to a number of floating pipe sections that conduct the slurry to some point ashore. The dredge progresses into its work by swinging, and the swinging is done by two major subsystems. One is called the spud. The spud is mounted here on the end of the dredge. There are two of them, and at any one time only one spud will be down in the river, and when the dredge is working it's pivoting on that spud. The rotational force is created by what are called winches, swing winches, and the swing winches are depicted here in the front. These winches are connected by cables to anchors that go out on either side of the river. Those anchors would be outside of the channel width that you want to maintain, and they allow you to pull the front of the dredge across the river. As you are pulling it across the river, because you're pivoting on a spud in the back of the dredge that is not in the center of the dredge, you are in effect bringing a portion of the dredge further ahead into your work. You actually employ no propulsion when you're moving into your work on the river. The work is supervised by a leverman who is in the uppermost cabin called the lever room, and he controls the entire operation through pneumatic and electrical controls that he operates from there. So the leverman is the key man in this operation.
It's kind of a nickname, the term leverman, because they run the levers that run the dredge. We're actually called an operator. We're an operator of the dredge. My duties are to swing the dredge and advance her, lift her spuds, drop her spuds, and move the dredge ahead as we are dredging. As I'm swinging, I'm dropping a spud, and as that occurs, I'm stepping ahead. And as I get to one corner, I pick another spud, drop the other spud, and literally it has stepped ahead so many degrees. So I'm stepping ahead, and those anchors are pulling my bow side to side. And as I advance, the anchors will get alongside of me, then the crew will move the anchors ahead, and then we'll dredge some more.
How many crew actually tend this boat?
At any one point in time, there are about 14 men that are making the various parts of this operation work. And there will be a master who is usually in the office or in the pilot house. He may also be piloting the vessel when it's underway, but at all times he's responsible for the entire operation. There's a leverman that we spoke about who actually does the control of the dredge during the dredging operation. We have heavy equipment operators, which means bulldozer operators or excavator operators. We have what are called deckhands, and they are the men who are assisting the tender operators in getting the manual labor of pipe work done. We have tender operators who are towboat operators, basically, and they see to it that the pipe that we use to conduct the slurry ashore is in the right place, and when they have to open the pipe for traffic, they are the ones who break the pipe and push it out of the way. And probably most important to all, we have cooks in the galley who are making all of this possible by keeping the men fed. So that total is around 14 people, and those people work most often a 12-hour schedule, and they will work for 7 days for 12 hours each day. There are another 14 people who are on board when those men and women are working, and they are in an off cycle for their 12 hours. So at any one time, we have about 28 people on the dredge, 14 working and 14 off.
Now let's talk about the construction of the boat itself. Tell me how many cabins there are, and describe the dining hall and the movie theater and everything that's on the boat.
These are very Spartan quarters by today's standards. There are accommodations for 66 people. And the top 2 ranking people on the vessel have a berth to themselves. The rest of the people on the vessel, depending on their rank, either have to sleep in a room with 1 other person or 2 or 4 or 6 other people. So we have accommodations that vary with rank. The galley appropriately is located right in the middle of the dredge, and it's where everybody passes through several times every day. All of the food is prepared from scratch there. They're fed 3 hot meals a day. The deck department occupies the back third of the dredge, and they have accommodations there that would be considered fairly rustic by today's standards. The men don't complain. They love working on the dredge. Unfortunately, those quarters are constructed of wood, and that was one of the reasons that prompted us to seek replacement of the Thompson, was because of the fire risk of wooden quarters. As originally conceived, the Thompson was going to be a steam dredge because that was what was the prevalent method of propulsion and dredging at the time. During the construction, they decided to convert it to diesel electric. And what that means is that a diesel engine is powering a generator. And for the propulsion of the Thompson, that is indeed the method that we use. We have 2 Enterprise engines. They're each 850 horsepower. They turn generators, and the generators create enough electricity to run electric propulsion motors. The propulsion motors drive the shafts that run the wheels. So the movement up and down river is through electrical power created by a diesel engine running a generator. The pump itself is direct drive diesel. That's a Fairbanks Morris 2,000 horsepower 2-cycle engine and is direct coupled to the pump. And that engine and coupling system proves to be one of the limitations of the Thompson because the engine is not capable of running over a wide RPM range. A classic dredging operation involves various speeds depending on the amount of sand and the size of sand you're dealing with. So the Dredge Getz deals with that issue by varying the speed of the pump through an electrical motor. The Thompson doesn't have that ability since it's a direct drive system. The dredge was constructed of material that was called wrought iron, and it was one of the last dredges to be built of that material. Today we construct all of our dredges out of steel. The wrought iron has created problems for us because we've had to repair the hull over the years, but it is a very flexible material and it has withstood millions and millions of cycles of stress. There are many features in the Dredge Thompson that don't become evident until you've worked with it and you've dealt with some of her problems and you see how elegantly she was designed and how she was designed to be repaired. So it is a great ship that we have here, and I'm really glad that it is not going to go to the boneyard. It's going to go to some place that can be appreciated.
Well, let's talk about that a bit now. The Dredge Thompson is going to be decommissioned very soon, I understand. She has a replacement. Let's talk a little bit about the replacement.
The replacement is called the Dredge Getz, and it is similar in that it is a hydraulic cutter head dredge, but it has no propulsion as the Thompson does, and it has no quarters. So she is a stripped-down version. The Getz has one major difference between the Thompson, and that is what's called variable speed control, which is it's a fairly new technique for controlling the speed of electric motors without wasting energy. And what it does is it allows us to tailor the speed of the pump to the working conditions that are required, and it saves us energy and it saves us wear in the pipe discharge system. So the Dredge Getz is a much updated version of the Thompson with advanced technology, but the same working principles.
The designer of the Dredge Getz, Peter de Jong, was in Winona for the christening of the Getz. He assures us of the benefits of the Thompson's replacement.
In the past 3 weeks, I spent living with the crew of the Thompson, and I can assure you they're a great group of people. Despite all their emotions and nostalgic feelings about the Thompson, they have been a tremendous help to start and test the Dredge Getz during those 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm sure that if there's anything wrong in the design, that they will have it all straightened out within a year. For them, it's a big change, a 60-year leap in technology. Yet, I don't think anything is different if you look at the fact that all they have to do is pump sand through the pipeline. But they will discover that it is a lot easier with modern technology. And for the ladies in our midst here who would aspire a job with the Corps of Engineers on a dredge other than in the galley, I would say apply for a job as a leverman, because this dredge has fingertip control. You can do it as well as a man.
Now, is the Getz in place now?
It is.
Okay.
It is, and it is our primary working dredge today. The Thompson is still being used as a propulsion unit for one of the tows, and it is also the sole quarters barge for us right now.
Well, what happens, how are they going to sleep when the dredge is taken out and put at the Marine Art Museum?
That is what is determining the schedule for retirement of the Thompson, is the availability of what will replace those quarters. The quarters barge is going to be called, the new quarters barge is going to be called the Taggets, and we have just within this past month placed a contract for construction of a new barge. And that barge will be coming online in about 2008. Okay. So as soon as we have those quarters, the Thompson will be retired completely.
Well, we've had an absolutely wonderful day today here at the Corps of Engineers in Fountain City. We've learned so much about the navigation of the river and the Dredge Thompson. And the two of you both obviously have such a love for the Dredge Thompson. Tell me how you feel about it being decommissioned.
Well, it is time for the Thompson to go. The Thompson has had a wonderful life here, but for many reasons it has come to the end of it. The government does not have methods of disposing of things that are very kind to the things. We normally would sell it for scrap or something else. So I'm very glad that the method of transferring this to the museum was found, and that's worked out. So I'm glad that its time has come and has found a good home. So it's a very good solution for both of us, I think.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I'm somewhat personally sad. I worked on there, and so I enjoyed my time on there, and I'm sad to see it go as a dredge, as an operating unit. But yet, along with Jim, I'm very happy that it's found a new home in Winona, that it's going to be based regionally here, where it has been all its entire life. So I'm glad that we found a good home for it.
Thank you both so much. And I'm certainly glad too. I certainly look forward to the Dredge Thompson being connected with the Marine Art Museum in Winona. Thanks for joining me today. Please join me again next week. Till then, enjoy the Spirit of the Heartland.
Step on board the William Thompson. It's like stepping back in time. Back to 1937 when no one could spare a dime. Louise cracked the champagne bottle on a sleek new wrought iron hull. The big dredge cleared the ways of Dravo. It was named for her grandpa. See the ghost of Captain Henning high up in the pilot house, standing there betwixt the levers as he brings the big boat round. Down the Allegheny River, out onto the Ohio, then up the Mississippi to her Fountain City home. Now the Thompson is dredging up memories of our days on the river gone by. A lot of good people have gone on, that many more have come along. We all bid the William Thompson goodbye. We were working in the boatyard then for 50 cents an hour, pulling barges up onto the ways with horse teams used for power. We were caulkers, we were painters, we were engineers. We went up to the Golden Frog when the sun went down for beer. But the Thompson was for working, so us boys we made up tow. One anchor barge, one oil barge, and pontoons set to go. Winona, Trempealeau, Dresbach, and Genoa locks we made. Then below the town of Lansing, we got that big pipe laid. We got that cutter headed turning, kept it going all this time, chewing up the bottom, spitting it down through the line. We've been everywhere on this old boat, the Missouri and St. Croix, from St. Paul to St. Louis, up and down the Illinois. Now the Thompson is dredging up memories of our days on the river gone by. A lot of good people have gone on, that many more have come along, and we all bid the William Thompson goodbye. We all bid the William Thompson goodbye.